Welcome back, YouTube. It's Fantasy Spitters, and today we're talking best playoff schedules for the upcoming 2024 fantasy football season. Now, let's talk strategy real quick to start it off and why we would want to correlate the playoff schedules of weeks 15 through 17, with our team. So, the main reason is obviously the fantasy football playoffs typically are weeks 15 through 17. Hopefully, your league's not doing week 18 because that's when a lot of starters are sitting. Normal playoffs are weeks 15 through 17 in most leagues. So that's what we're going to cover. This strategy tends to lean towards best ball. It could be done in your at-home redraft league, but it's not as important as you can trade and pick up guys on waivers throughout the season. So could be used for both. More leaning towards best ball for this video. Most of our other videos will lean towards redraft leagues. On our upcoming rankings videos, we will be focusing on redraft leagues with PPR and everything. But right now, just an overview of what we want to do is find the teams that have the best matchups, right? And kind of correlate those. A lot of weeks 15 through 17 games at the end of the season, there's a lot of divisional matchups, the rivalries, right? To kind of seal who's going to be what place in the division. The league loves to do that. It brings a lot of excitement. It brings meaning to the end of the season games. So we're going to go over some of the top ones in weeks 15, week 16, week 17 in terms of total points. And then we'll go over which teams are top 10, bottom 10. Not going to worry about the middle 10 or middle 12, I should say. Yeah, as you would expect, right? Going into weeks 15, some of the better matchups we have are, again, in green right here will be the better matchups, the dark green. The best matchup is Bills Lions. Next best, Dolphins Texans, Chiefs Browns, Rams Niners. And we also have Packers Seahawks, Bears Vikings could be a thing. When you're looking at this, again, green's good. As you start fading into the white, that the white is the median, that's the middle. That would be average. And then as you get to the red, that's the less points, the worse you're going to get for a playoff schedule. Obviously, you want as many points scored in a game as you can. These lines are super early lines too. I want to mention these are coming from just different sports books. Some sports books don't even have the lines out for every week. Some do. I think I got these from maybe DraftKings. I'm not 100% sure. But again, these are going to change week to week. This is super early line, but just wanted to get this video out to you. So as we go into week 16, you're going to see, again, in green, the best games. We have the Niners Dolphins, 49 total points. Got Lions Bears, 48. Texans Chiefs, 47. Rams Jets, 47.5. Eagles Commanders, so on and so forth. You guys can see the screen. Some of the worst games, Titans Colts. And going into week 17, which would be your fantasy football championship, the most meaningful week, you got Lions Niners, Cowboys Eagles, that's a divisional game. Cardinals Rams, divisional. Titans Jaguars, divisional. Ravens Texans, not divisional, but big game. Some of the worst one, Chargers Patriots. One of the other worst ones, Chiefs Steelers. Worth noting, I'm a Steelers fan. Going into fantasy football playoffs, the Steelers have the hardest schedule in terms of strength of schedule. They're going up against Eagles. Then I'm pretty sure they have the Ravens and the Chiefs on Christmas Day. So they're in for it. So if you are optimizing or you do have those players and you're going into fantasy football players with those players in a redraft league, maybe dump them. For best ball, they're going later in drafts. You could probably get away with it. They're still going to have to do some things, especially like George Pickens. You can assume that they're just going to be trailing all game. So George Pickens will get a lot of volume. Hopefully Pat Freiermuth and Jalen Warren get some dump offs. Anyway, let's move into are total points throughout the 3 weeks, the best teams there, and then the average total points. So again, broke all that math down here. Formula for an implied team total is just that team's projected total, or the total overall projected. So you would take like 46.5 divided by 2, then divide that spread 6.5 by 2. So then you would add that to the Niners because they're favored, and you would subtract that from the Rams. Now, let's head over to our top 10. We'll talk about top 10 first. So we have, surprise, surprise, the Niners at 1, then the Bengals, Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Lions, Cowboys, Eagles, Packers, Falcons. Let's talk a little bit about the Niners. As you're coming into, these last couple weeks, total projected is 78.5, and average is 26.2. For reference, just for all these averages, the average score in an NFL game is probably around 21 to 22 points for a team. It's kind of been on the decline from years past. Last year was pretty low, and the year before was pretty low. 2020 was actually really high, and it's been coming down from there. Hopefully we get an above average year in terms of points scored. That would be fun to watch, always is. But just assuming it's like the last couple years, average is about 22 points a game for the average team. So to be 4.2 points over is insane, especially in this last couple weeks. That's, almost a whole nother touchdown, 6 points. But again, with the Niners, there's a lot of value in Brock Purdy. He was QB 6 on total points scored last year, I want to say. He's just going to be really efficient, right? Barring Ayuk leaving, he still has Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, CMC, and then he still has Jawan Jennings and rookie Ricky Pearsall. So he's going to be super efficient. His receivers are going to get tons of yards after catches. They're going to score a boatload of touchdowns, clearly. So he's definitely a good quarterback, especially if you want to go late round QB or later round QB. Great one to snag still. He's going to not go crazy, but he should be consistent week to week. In terms of receivers, Ayuk and Debo, they go kind of early. There's not tons of value there in terms of their picks. You could go ahead and say that Ayuk will have a majority target share on that team, and he does have potential to. He could be a wide receiver 1 in terms of fantasy, right? And top 12 points scored per receiver, but there's no way he's getting into that top 3 range, in my opinion. And same with Debo. There's just too much that has to go around. And same with Kittle. Now Kittle's different. He always is up there in tight end points, and he's going a little bit later. I always do like Kittle later in the draft. He does obviously get injured every year, just the way he plays. He'll miss a few games here and there. But yeah, I like those. And then per usual, Elijah Mitchell's a good snag. Super late if CMC were to go down. One big statistic is CMC had over 400 touches or potential touches last year as a running back going into an age 28 season. Not what he wants to see there, because obviously that's a lot of wear and tear on an older man's body. So you could see a decline or a risk of injury this year. So Elijah Mitchell, good stash there. Other than that, if you really want to risk on someone getting injured, play upside Jawan Jennings or Ricky Pearsall, but Ricky Pearsall did have an injury, hamstring, in training camp. So keep an eye on that. Moving on to the Bengals. This is where I like the values a little bit. Not Jamar Chase. Obviously, you're going to expect Jamar Chase to be good. But if you're looking here, the point total, just below the Niners. And then average again, just below the Niners by 0.6 points. They're going to score a ton, right? Joe Burrow, I think, is going to have a great comeback year this year. Honestly, I might throw some money down on comeback player of the year, but I think he comes back. He has the same cast. in terms of receiving. Loses Tyler Boyd, but they get Jermaine Burton, and then they have Andre Yoshivas, who wasn't that bad when given opportunity last year. Higgins and Chase stay healthy all year. Just another Burrow year in my opinion. 2 years ago, he finished as the QB4 in points per game and overall. So I think he does have a hot streak this year. I think he comes back off that wrist injury and he's perfectly fine. Again, no value in Chase. Obviously, you have to be drafting pretty early to get him, but I do love T. Higgins. Now he's been climbing up draft boards on Underdog, but in some leagues you can still get him pretty late. I know a lot of people are on the Bengals this year. Burrow's coming back, blah blah blah. But I'm really high on them. I really think they could be something. Vegas is obviously high on them, and they're going to be a high-scoring offense. As far as Zach Moss and Chase Brown go, super value there. They could be super split, 50-50. Kind of what coaches were saying, a little bit interchangeable. Not 100% sure on who's getting majority share, so you could play either. But again, you just want players on high-scoring offenses. Those two go pretty late. I think Moss goes in the 90s in ADP, and Chase Brown's going in the 100s, 110s. Move on to the Ravens. Again, Ravens have been consistently a top scoring offense in the league. They just acquired Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry's efficiency goes up a little bit in terms of touchdowns. Obviously not going to get a bunch of dump off passes or anything. Lamar's just going to run the ball. But one of my favorite things to do, if you can do it, is kind of grab Derrick Henry and Lamar together. Or obviously what's going on a lot of times in Underdog is Andrews Lamar stack. That always happens every year. But I do like the value of Mark Andrews. He's fallen down from previous years. He's going like the 5th round. Lamar's still going around the same as he was in prior years. 4th, 5th round, he can fall. I mean, I love that. He always has that upside to be the QB1, and he's going as QB3. Or no, QB4 actually. Maybe sometimes 5. So I love that value too. Again, high on the Ravens, just like the Bengals. The division's going to be great. That's all that needs to be said there. I mean, Zay Flowers, I'm not as high on him just because I don't think the offense is still going to be too pass heavy. Will probably be a little better than what he was last year because he will have the whole year to be like that and be explosive and have plays scripted up for him. But not the highest on Zay Flowers, but it's worth it. Moving on to the Bills. I think this is the team that could see a fall off out of the top 10. Obviously, some people do think that. But in Underdog, Josh Allen's still the QB1 going off boards. People are still really high on him, obviously, for upside of his rushing abilities. But I think they just take a step backwards offensively and defensively. They lose a ton of starters. I think they're going to underperform this year. They lost that window, in my opinion, to compete for a Super Bowl. And just a lot of question marks at receiver. You got Curtis Samuel coming in, who's still not that old, but old in terms of he's a vet. He's been in the league for a while. Not super old in terms of age, but I don't know what he's going to be. Keon Coleman, rookie, may take a little bit to break out. And then Khalil Shakur going pretty late. Now, that's where you can get values in these receivers. Coleman's going as the 1 in that offense, aside from Kincaid, who goes around 50s, like around 5. But there's reports in training camp that Dawson Knox is still filling in, so a little bit suspect there. If Kincaid can truly get all the snaps and everything there, run all the routes, so a little wary on that offense. Not super high up, but again, it's worth the risk. It's worth the build because Vegas thinks they're going to be legit this year again. Coming in at 5, the Chiefs, no surprise. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs had a ton of weapons. My favorite value, who is not a value anymore, was Pacheco. He's going to be the workhorse. Don't really think anybody's there to take his job or take any of his touches. He's proven pretty durable as well. Mahomes should have a great year. That's priced in on underdog. Receivers wise, they're bumping up boards. They used to be better values, but in my opinion, Hollywood's going to be the one there. A lot of people don't like that take. That's my take on it. I think he's the one. Rasheed Rice had trouble running the full route tree last year. There's a lot of underneath stuff, shorter stuff. Hollywood can do everything. I mean, he was the one in Arizona last year. He had to be. He was the one when he was in that Ravens offense. He's shown upside, just more of an injury risk for him. And then Rasheed Rice is obviously a risk of suspension, but the receivers are decent values. Like I said, they're moving up boards. I don't know if Xavier Worthy's going to be too much, but gadget player, who knows? Obviously, Kelsey is still going as the second tight end off the board. So grab the Chiefs guys. Correlate for that end of year. Next, Lions, right? Jared Goff had a great sleeper year last year. A ton of people down on him again. I think the Lions do the same thing they did last year. I don't think they overperform from what they did last year. I don't think they underperform. I think it's just like the same exact team, maybe a little better defense. But the offense is pretty much the same. Nothing really changed there. Jameson Williams might get a little better. But in terms of everything else, you can get a great value in Jared Goff if you want to just kick the curb at quarterback for a while. And then, in my opinion, barring injuries, Gibbs and Montgomery split the backfield again. Maybe it's a little less 50-50, maybe a little more 55-45 for Gibbs, but Montgomery's a great late round option. It's going, in the 70s, and Gibbs is going at like the turn in the first round. So I like Montgomery a ton. I do like Gibbs too. Montgomery gets injured, great upside, but Gibbs gets injured, Montgomery shoots up boards, right? Amon-Ra, not a value play, obviously. He's just Amon-Ra. He's going to do the same thing. He's going to get a ton of targets, ton of catches, or what he does. And then Laporta, in my opinion, maybe going a little too high. Again, there's a lot of mouths to feed on this Lions offense, especially if Jameson Williams takes a little step up. So I'm not as high on Laporta, but if you want to shoot your shot on him, go for it. Next, you got Cowboys, 73.5 or 73.25 total points in the playoff schedule. That's good for 24.4 average. I mean, Dak was a QB3 overall last year. Similar situation to the Lions where nothing's too different offensively, besides, at least skill player wise, besides you lose Tony Pollard, but bring Zeke back in. Tony Pollard wasn't even that great last year, and you have Rico Dowdle, who you had last year. So you got Rico Dowdle for explosive plays, Zeke to kind of take most of the workload and middle carries and stuff and goal lines and things, and you have CeeDee Lamb, who's gonna be CeeDee Lamb. Still got Brandon Cooks, who you can get at a great value. Brandon Cooks really turned it up at the end of last year. Dak was so elite last year, and you can still get him as like QB 7 or 8 off the board. Great values there for a team that's projected a ton of points, especially in these last few weeks of the season. I love them. I love taking them. Great stacks to build. Zeke goes super late. Rico Dowdle goes super late. Someone has to score. Someone has to score those points. So snag up the Cowboys while you can. Eagles. Coming up with them. Jalen Hurts is like the second QB off the board. Typical. He's my number one this year. I think he'll be the number one. I think the Eagles overperform. I think they could be the second or third scoring offense this year. They had Saquon Barkley. I think AJ Brown. I have Jalen Hurts as my QB1. I think AJ Brown's my receiver 4 here. I would put AJ Brown kind of right next to Jamar Chase. I love AJ Brown. I have some stats coming up, but if he had more catchable targets last year compared to what Devonta Smith had in his percentage of catchable targets, because AJ Brown was the wide receiver 3 last year in terms of all that, of the extra catches and yards he would have had, not to mention touchdowns. So I love them. Obviously, AJ Brown's not like a value in any stretch of the means, but in my opinion, you're getting him on pick 8, 9, 10 in underdog, I would go ahead and I wouldn't feel bad about taking him at pick 5 or 6. Um, and then in terms of Saquon's fallen a little bit. I like him. He could be efficient behind the Eagles line. It's the best team he's ever been on. Devonta Smith, same thing. If he just kind of reproduces what he did last year, he was, I want to say, receiver 23 overall. Which isn't crushing it, but if the Eagles do, my prediction, be one of the top scoring offenses in the NFL, he kind of creeps up to like where T. Higgins kind of potentially is with like that borderline wide receiver 1 role, and they're splitting in it with AJ Brown. So I do think they're really efficient in the air this year. Not the greatest values though. You can get Dallas Goedert pretty late, but I'm not sure how much he's going to get involved. Now moving on to the Packers. Not much to be said. This team was such a surprise last year. Jordan Love, man, he was good. And he just caught a bag. Got so much money. Same thing as like Dak. Jordan Love's going around that same area. Great pickup in my opinion. If you want to go like later round QB, not super late, a little like end of the middle rounds for Jordan Love, I think he can have another great year. Again, the team upgraded at running back, in my opinion. You get rid of Aaron Jones, who's phasing out, getting older. You bring in Josh Jacobs, a little bit younger, maybe a little bit healthier, bigger, stronger back as well. So should boost that offense. You get Marshawn Lloyd, rookie. Don't know much about him, but people seem to be decently high on him as well. Plus, a year going into the year, healthy Christian Watson. You got Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, a ton of offensive playmakers that were just coming on strong in random games. So a ton of playmakers on this team with Jordan Love, and all these playmakers can kind of be got in the middle to late rounds, which is what I love. So if you're looking to build for later rounds and you want to go to Packers team, you can go over and look at the Packers schedule, weeks 15 through 17. I'll try to put all those on the screen for each team we're talking about. But you can build your teams around that and then correlate with who they're playing in those weeks. But again, I think there's just tons of value. Josh Jacobs has been climbing up boards a little bit, but I still think he's undervalued. He had that crazy year in Vegas when he was undervalued. Maybe went a little too high last year and got hurt. Didn't have the best year. The Raiders were horrible. I think he has a great comeback year this year with the Packers. Yeah, that's my take on that. Last but not least, number 10, the Falcons. Should be no surprise again. This is all a prediction now because most of the other teams have proven it. We've seen what they've done. They've been winning. The Falcons are a little bit new because they get Kirk Cousins. Everyone's been saying they're a quarterback away. Are they really a quarterback away? I guess we'll see this year. Is Kirk going to be Kirk coming off the injury? He was a beast last year in terms of points per game. He maybe was, I don't want to say like maybe 6 or 7 in points per game before he got hurt. He was just eating. I don't think they're going to be as pass happy in Atlanta as they were in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell. Again, they have Bijan Robinson, so they don't need to be as pass happy. So maybe Kirk Cousins isn't necessarily the play. An underdog, he can be. In a redraft league, no. There's no reason to really take him. But in terms of value for the Falcons, the only one I could see is Pitts. Otherwise, Drake London oftentimes can go at the turn, an underdog. Bijan's obviously like a middle of the first round pick. And aside from that, I mean, you're kind of just banking on injury with the other guys. I like Darnell Mooney. Don't know why people are down on Darnell Mooney. He's going really late. Who's going to be their wide receiver 2 there? You got Kyle. I mean, Kirk's known to be able to like spread the ball around if he needs to. Look at like KJ Osborne, Adam Thielen, and Stephon Diggs together. Like, they're going to be just fine. And I think Darnell Mooney could be a sleeper play on this Falcons offense. especially if anything does happen to Drake London or Kyle Pitts. Darnell Mooney was the wide receiver one a couple years ago in Chicago instead of Allen Robinson. He's a decent talent, decent player. That's more the value that I would like to see. Otherwise, there's no wrong plays with the Falcons. It's just more of a risk than the other 9 teams we talked about that have already proven it and done it. If you're high on the Falcons, draft them. Me personally, a little bit suspect, especially for Cousins' older QB coming off that Achilles. But we'll see. Thank you for watching the video. When I originally recorded this, I planned on having it just one part, but it ended up running 39 minutes, so I decided to break it up into 2 different pieces. We have the first half here with the top 10, and then there will be another video for the bottom 10 and me giving my thoughts on those teams. Again, thanks for watching. Appreciate y'all. Fantasy Spitters out.